What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have a surprise video, at least for me, of the 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Arydia, the paths we dare tread. Surprise video, you're saying? That's garbage. You're the one who's filming it right now and putting it out. And yeah, that's true, but I really wasn't planning on doing one of these. For those of you who are new to the channel, this is a series where I cover a campaign that's currently on Kickstarter or GameFound or whatever that's demolished its funding goal and try to provide a counterpoint to the hype. Now, I've done this a few times, and I really only do it for games that have broken that $1 million barrier, because I feel like, yeah, if I had $1 million, well, I would feel pretty successful. And while I kind of expected Arydia to break this barrier, I really wasn't intending on doing this type of video for it because it's not that much over its funding goal of 720K. So it feels like not necessarily I'm picking on it, but the bar should be a little bit higher since they were so realistic and forthright about their funding. And they clearly have a few more costs associated with their game compared to some of the other ones that I may have already covered in this series. But as I looked into it, and every Monday morning I've been putting out this crowdfunding countdown video as I cover all the board games that are finishing up in the next week or so, read through all the rule books so you don't have to, while also highlighting games that don't get as much media attention for whatever reason. But anyway, as I was looking into it for that, I was so friggin' drawn into it that I almost had to back it on the spot. The only problem is that I'm on a pretty significant budget and I really have to be choosy about what I get. So that's the purpose of this series. I try to talk myself out of backing something, and I hope that you in the comments will sway me in the other direction. And for this one, honestly, it's not gonna take much swaying. So anyway, here we go. Why am I even interested in this game? I always like to start with the positives, obviously. And right off the bat, it's because their realistic 720K funding goal is so refreshing to see. And immediately, at least makes me want to look at the campaign in a more positive light. It makes me trust that their pledge cost, which is significant at 165 bucks US, is not grossly overinflated because they were so realistic about how much money it's going to take to actually create this thing and enable them to still have margins to make a profit and run a business. Because personally, I absolutely hate it when campaigns cancel after they've already funded, or after they've already funded times their funding goal times 2, times 3, whatever. I mean, I get it. I know you were hoping for more, and you were hoping you could make that 700% funded outrageous claim that for some reason gives you more bragging rights around the community, and use that as a marketing tactic. And sometimes new unforeseen circumstances come up, it's true. But honestly, if you cancel a game that people are excited about, that has funded, just because you haven't funded enough, then just get out of here. Be honest about your margin. And I know you need that funded on day one status as a boost to help you get more and more backers, and you're hoping it'll garner more attention, but it's just such a tough line to walk. And honestly, I don't have that much sympathy for you when Arydia is setting this new golden standard and is proving that, yeah, you can still have an incredibly successful campaign and have a larger funding goal. So what can I say about Arydia? It looks incredible, and it better look incredible if you're paying over 200 bucks for it. It's got one of the most charming intro Kickstarter videos that I've ever seen. Great music, the art's gorgeous. I love that the minis come pre-painted, and I also love the customizable heads that they can, oh my god, that looks like a young Maggie. Can we go back on that? That does look like a younger Maggie. No, Maggie, I wasn't.
That trollop looks nothing like me. I have a more elegant nose.
You're very elegant. That's true. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. Get it off the screen. So aside from Arydia having awoken something in me that I never knew was there, I am so on board with everything. The only thing stopping me, and it's a pretty big bar, is the price point. But this is how you create a campaign page. They don't have a link to the rulebook, which usually bothers me because I like being able to see the rules and figure out for myself if I'm gonna like the game. But for one of the first times, I don't feel like I need it. I usually scroll through the videos to have a visual component for when I talk about these sorts of things, especially in the crowdfunding countdown. And for the 13 minutes that I was scrolling through this enormously dense campaign page, I was enraptured. I was enamored by everything. They give you awesome examples of what to expect in the game. They aren't saying, oh no, we can't show you examples because of spoilers, it's legacy. But they say, yeah, our world is so damn open world that it doesn't matter what we show you because that's just going to bring you in deeper. This is what I love to see. In my opinion, they're doing everything right from a campaign standpoint and from almost every aspect. They've highlighted how they're thinking about storage, because one of the main things with these sorts of games is that they're so expansive they become inaccessible with the amount of storage and components that you have to juggle. So to see that they're putting the gamer first and providing you with an experience that you're going to want to get back to the table and are able to is such a high point for me. I love the idea of scoring critical hits on your foes. You'll roll the dice to see how much damage you deal, but it's a range. So if you roll an 18, you don't hit 18 points of damage, but you check your weapon and you see how effective your slash was. Then you look at your foes where you can hit and you apply your weapon's attack pattern to those monsters. And then the monsters will attack certain parts of your body that if you're wearing armor on those parts, you can then lessen some of that damage. Are you kidding me right now? I also love the idea that it encourages roleplay, and your party gets these role-playing points that get to be spent in this sort of minor way that you don't really need but can help mitigate some certain dice. And it encourages the world to grow without you really needing a dungeon master. And I also love the emphasis that it's a long-lasting design that you can completely reset without destroying any components. Although you are adjusting your stats on your characters, so I don't know if that little thing is going to be laminated or easy to print or what, but for the most part, it feels like that being able to reset completely is almost there. I mean, if you couldn't tell, I am hyped. And I'm usually against this hype. I need to talk myself down from this hype. I mean, this upcoming week is going to be a really awesome week for campaigns that are ending. But you're not here for the excitement. Of course not. You're here for 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Arydia, which we've got to do before I talk myself into it all over again. Now, these are in tentative order, and I usually structure them specifically so that number 1 at the end is what I feel to be the most important. But for this, I think they're all kind of valid, and that's why I'm not counting down, but counting up, aka it's whichever reason resonates with you the most. That's the important thing. Now, reason number 1, it's too expensive. It's okay. You can take a breath, slow your roll, calm yourself down from this self-inflicted lather. You will have a chance to get this later, even as a late pledge or something. You can pledge $1. The prices won't change in the pledge manager, which is a great thing because I know some campaigns like to use that as kind of a FOMO tactic to get you to pledge before you really know what you're pledging for. But the price is expensive. It's a lot of money, plus shipping for this Gloomhaven-sized box. I mean, they are giving you about a $20 subsidy on shipping, so really $145 if you think about it, if you want to justify it that way. Wait a minute, this is why you shouldn't back. I shouldn't be highlighting the deals. Damn it. I'm really trying here, but there is something bubbling up inside me that just wants to get out. But yeah, for me, after shipping, it would cost me around 250 bucks Canadian, which is a lot of money. And we're coming out of pandemic times. Maybe you don't have that money to spend on a luxury purchase. And that's completely okay, and you shouldn't stretch yourself thin to get this game. It's not that good. Nothing can be that good. As cool as it looks, you already have cool games that you already own. More cool games will come along down the line. And you can always get this off of somebody else once they're finished playing it through and decide that they have experienced the story and want to get rid of it. Remember, completely resettable. There will be other opportunities to get this game if this is a lot of money for you right now. And this is always going to be a consideration because games are getting more and more expensive. But there are plenty of accessible options out there, and there's plenty of opportunity for you to save 10 bucks every paycheck to get it together, and probably in time to late pledge, if you decide that it's something that you really want. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2, you shouldn't back Arydia, is if you haven't played Xia Legends of a Drift System. Now, I know these are 2 very different games. This one is Legacy and Xia is competitive sandbox. Xia is also space, this one's fantasy. They're very different, but Cody Miller did design both of these. And I know a lot of Xayah fans in particular were interested in Arydia because they enjoyed his design so much and they were looking for his next thing. So there's gonna be some design elements that might feel similar. Perhaps the feeling of the world that it creates. And at my local game store, Xayah's 50% cheaper. I can pick it up for 120 bucks, which is still quite expensive, but perhaps is a better alternative if you don't have the money, but you still want to get yourself a little treat. Or I'm sure it's at a bunch of board game cafes and you can get together with your friends and go to a board game cafe for a night and try it out and see if you like it. Just to see if you like Cody Miller's design. Now, I know that the intersection between those who love fantasy and those who love space isn't always the greatest intersection as well. But the world building aspect in Xayah, even though you're dealing with going to different planets, like lawful planets and outlaw planets, and it's very different, it seems like there are some parallels to the smaller parts of Arydia, at least in its exploration. It obviously isn't a substitute for the story that you're going to be getting in this legacy game experience, but if you're more of a mechanics person, the idea of upgrading your spaceship could feel similar to the upgrade mechanics of the character. And you might find that you hate the mechanics of Xayah and you don't like this sort of design, and that might help you reevaluate if you need to get Arydia. And you might say, yeah, I hate space. I don't have to love all of the designer's games. That's the point, is they make different games. I just love this one, Arydia, which I'm getting, and that's also completely valid. But I think there is still design parallel that is worth looking into before you drop so much money on this purchase. Now, number 3 is the same for when I did one of these for Chronicles of Drunagor, and that reason is you still have too many campaign games that you haven't played. I know you do because I do. And even though I used it as a point in that video, I think it bears repeating, as I think of the boxes and boxes that have yet to arrive in a place where I'm already lacking storage space. I joked with my friends Brandon and Zach the other day that I would have to buy a calyx to put into their apartment just to manage the overflow of what's to come. So if you're going for Arydia and you already have a ton of campaign games that you haven't played, you better be sure that this is the campaign game to end all campaign games, and not just another one to sit on your shelf for years while you dream about the day where you're going to get people together to play it. Or make sure that this one doesn't stop you from enjoying the ones that you already own and are excited to play. Or at least that's my thinking on it. Because lately I have been getting a little overwhelmed with the amount of campaign-style games that I have to play. And I feel like it's starting to become more of a lifestyle choice. Like they're always going to be the ones that take precedent at my gaming get-togethers, and I'll never get to the rest of my collection, which I also love quite a bit. And I don't know if I want that to be the case, because I do like the variety. But again, this may not be your situation. Someone mentioned in my latest video a table talk back about the topic, do board games have a finite lifespan, or should they always be infinitely replayable? That they have been gravitating more towards campaign games in general because it gives them the excuse needed to gather around the table, and they can schedule games more frequently than if they weren't entrenched in this sort of story. I'm paraphrasing, but if that sounds like you, well then, hey, this may not be an issue for you. But it's definitely an issue for me, and it's definitely one that I've been very aware of falling into. So that's our number 3. Now, reason number 4 why you shouldn't back Arydia is that it is the most expensive computer game that you could ever buy. I find the trend with a lot of these expansive worlds is that it's really cool that they're so expansive and they've got so many places that you can explore, and they've got all these bits and pieces and discovery, and that's fun. But a lot of them could be equally as expansive and provide almost an equal experience through a digital medium. And in that way, you wouldn't have to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars on components that you're only going to use once. Now, I really do think Arydia does a good job in combating that with its hand-painted scenes, the gorgeous artwork and pieces that it's been showcasing, their care and attention to detail in terms of how you maneuver things, plus their storage system. They're really trying to make it feel streamlined and easy to play, which is awesome. But you can probably get the same feeling of a large open world with a character you can customize with an expansive computer game that you could download for 20 bucks instead of 250, and would give you that 40 plus hours of exploration, maybe even more. And it would automate all that other stuff for you. It could give you those branching story paths, all that stuff that Arydia offers, but at that significantly reduced price. So I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, did this really have to be a board game? Is this really the only and optimal way to consume this sort of experience? I mean, it still might be. Like I said, the attention to detail and the art, like, this thing seems really off the charts. But there is a possibility that it's just way too much stuff, and it might have been better consumed in a different form. And finally, reason number 5 is that you don't like RPGs, role-playing games. This kind of ties into the previous point, but at its heart, this is an RPG in board game form. This is emphasized with the role-playing points that you get. You're encouraged to roleplay, although to be fair, you're not required to. But I think for it to really be worth backing, you have to love that genre. I almost exclusively played RPGs and JRPGs on the computer, growing up especially, and I love this sort of expansive world of leveling up your stats, looting and customizing your loadout, talking to characters, grinding for experience points. But it's those things that it's attempting to replicate here. I mean, the combat system looks so good with those targeted attacks, but it's not just going to be about the combat. If you don't like those longer RPGs that require you to commit, and not just casually, but actively, to this 40-hour journey, this story experience with all these different elements to it, even if there are a couple elements that are drawing you in, but not the others, I would seriously rethink backing it. So, those are my reasons, or at least the best reasons that I can come up with right now. Even after all that, I'm still at like 80%, which is pretty high for me. See, my big thing with these Kickstarters and these large campaigns is that it's really, really easy to fall prey to the hype, the excitement of the campaigns, and the promises that it makes you, rather than taking a deeper look at the gameplay and actually seeing if it's going to be right for you down the line. But for me, I'm really excited about all the different gameplay ideas that I've seen. It's almost as if every single mechanic that they've showcased has been a hit for me. And that's the way that I felt when I first read the Rising Sun rulebook, which is my favorite game of all time. And I know I've certainly felt less of that excitement about individual mechanics and aspects on other games that I have backed, because I thought that they would retain their value, or I could sell them if I didn't like them. So I'm pretty in, but this one comes with that added pressure of the increased price tag, so that requires a little extra consideration, at least for me and my situation. So let me know your reasons for and against. I'm sure I'll find it helpful in making up my own mind, and I have no doubt that others will find it helpful as well. Are you backing it? Do you have the space for another Gloomhaven-sized box? Anyway, thank you for dropping by and sticking around. If you wouldn't mind dropping a thumbs up on your way out and clicking that subscribe button too. You won't even know you did it, and it really helps me out a lot. Or if you hate my guts for even suggesting that you shouldn't get yourself a little toy, well then, hit the thumbs down, I guess. That's how it works. I know. I deserve it. In any case, don't listen to me, don't listen to the other reviewers out there. Listen to your gut. And make sure that future you doesn't come back in time and punch you in the eye for spending their hard-earned money on something that they didn't enjoy. That's it for me. Once again, my name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, so see you when I see ya on the paths that I might dare to tread. Bye.